Welcome to Just a Dude podcast, where we dive deep into topics that matter with guests who've walked the walk. I'm your host, Nathan, and today we're peeling back the layers of one of the most mysterious industries out there, publishing. We're going to debunk myths, share insider secrets, and give you the real scoop on what it takes to succeed as an author. So, whether you're scribing your first novel or a seasoned wordsmith, you're in the right place. Grab your pen, your notebook, and let's get into the truth about publishing. Today, we're joined by someone who's seen both sides of the editorial desk, and he's here to spill the beans. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Terry Whalin, a name synonymous with publishing wisdom. Terry isn't just an author with over 60 books to his name. He's also an editor who worked with more than 50 magazines, a former acquisitions editor, and currently holds that role at Morgan James Publishing. With his vast experience, Terry has guided countless writers through the often confusing journey of getting published. His latest book, 10 Publishing Myths, Insights Every Author Needs to Succeed, is a must-read for anyone looking to navigate the publishing landscape. And here's a treat. Terry's sharing some exclusive insights with us. Welcome to the show, Terry.
Nathan, great to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm so glad you joined us, and I wonder if you could just let the audience know a little bit about yourself before we begin.
Yeah, Nathan, I've been in the writing publishing world for a long time. I was a high school English teacher, actually, that noticed something in my writing back then and encouraged me to join the high school newspaper. And so I did that. I actually became the editor of my high school newspaper the final year I was in high school. And I thought I was really a good writer back then, Nathan. So I went to Indiana University to study journalism. It's one of the top 10 journalism schools in the country. And I joined the college newspaper. I thought I should do that, And so,
yeah, makes sense.
But my first story for the college newspaper, I think my editor had me rewrite that story about 5 times. And when it appeared, it was like a couple of paragraphs, So
yes.
I quickly learned that I had a lot to learn there at Indiana. And basically back then we were, writing stories. I mean, that was the main thing I was doing. Sure, I went to class, but my main thing that I was doing was writing stories for this newspaper. And there were about 100 of us on the writing staff. And we produced a full-size newspaper 6 days a week. So it was kind of a big deal as college kids to be doing that. This is it back in the pre-computer days. I'd been out at a social fraternity drinking the night before, and I couldn't get my fingers on the right keys. And I kept saying to myself, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. And this little blonde-haired girl that was sitting next to me, she turned to me and she said, "Oh, Terry, don't say that, because one of these days when you really need Jesus, you'll call out for him and he won't be there.
And he won't answer, right?"
Yeah, and I thought, what is this? I'm a Christian. I go to church when I'm at home. I read the Bible in church when I'm at home. I mean, Nathan, I really knew nothing about Christianity. And she encouraged me to go to a little bookstore a couple of blocks off the Indiana campus. They had pretty cards and posters, and maybe I'd find a book that interested me. So I wandered down there a couple of days later. I bought this book called Jesus the Revolutionary. I thought, how in the world could Jesus be a revolutionary? And I took that book back to my room. I read it. It showed me a different side of Jesus than I'd ever seen before. About that time, some people invited me to a little Jesus people gathering in downtown Bloomington, and they were sitting on little scraps of carpets with little candles lit. And those people had something that I didn't have. And so I got a Bible, and I've been going the Jesus trail with my life ever since. And my journalism colleagues thought I was a little nuts, because instead of joining the Indianapolis Star, the Chicago Tribune, we were all training to be newspaper reporters. And instead, I joined this group called Wycliffe Bible Translators, and I trooped off and I studied I was in linguistics for 10 years. I worked among the Southwest Cachiquel people in Guatemala. I actually have a New Testament that's on my shelf that wouldn't have existed if I hadn't have made those kind of choices. But then I wandered back to my writing, started writing for magazines. I ultimately became the editorial director at Wycliffe. I was in charge of our magazine and books and different things. But that's what returned me to my writing. And I've written for more than 50 magazines now at this point, and I've written more than 60 books. So I've just had great opportunities through the years to do this kind of work. And I know that books are important because I read a book when I was a sophomore in college that changed the direction of my life. And so that's why I do this work in publishing that I do.
I love that. That's great to know, because you're right. We've all read books, and books have the power to change us, to change our viewpoints, or even to just make us better people. And, it's great that you saw that, you could use your writing to help, others, and to bring writing to, the public, essentially. So, Terry, was there a pivotal moment for you that changed your perspective on writing and publishing?
Yeah, Nathan, it actually happened in 2007. I was a literary agent back then. I was taking proposals and stuff from people and shopping them to publishers. Mark Victor Hansen, the co-author on Chicken Soup for the Soul, had this event out in Los Angeles. He invited me to come, so I went out there and I took pitches from authors during the event. But I also decided to sit there with over 400 people, and I listened to the different speakers. And at that point in my life, Nathan, I'd written about 50 books for traditional publishers. So publishers were making books, they were getting them in the bookstore, they were pretty books, all that kind of thing. But when you write that for traditional publishers, once a year or maybe quarterly, they'll send you a financial statement about how your books are doing. How are they selling? Well, all of my books were in the minus category. They weren't selling. And I couldn't figure out what in the world was I doing wrong in this area. Well, one of the speakers at this event was the other co-author on Chicken Soup for the Soul, Jack Canfield. And Jack has written this book called The Success Principles. Basically, the first success principle says, I will take 100% responsibility for my own success. Now, none of us want to take 100% responsibility. We want somebody else to do it. We want some publisher, some marketing person, somebody, please, other than us.
Exactly.
But I decided during this event that I was going to take 100% responsibility for my own success. So I started blogging and started doing some things, because back then all I was doing was I had a little terrywhalin.com website. That's all I was doing. I was doing no guest blogging, no radio, no podcasting, social media, nothing like that. So I decided to start doing something. And actually, there's a story about those two authors from the Chicken Soup for the Soul books that people forget. I mean, they were rejected over 160 times. I mean, that's a lot of rejection.
It's a lot of rejection to get through.
And they finally found a little publisher in Florida that was going to publish the first Chicken Soup for the Soul book. And they told their publisher they were going to sell 1 million books during the first year. And their publisher laughed at them because they'd never sold 1 million copies of anything. They thought that was a ridiculous idea. It took them 1.5 years, Nathan, to sell their first 1 million books. They still got 1 million books. And what they did, they talk about following what they called the rule of 5. So they got up every day and they did 5 things to be telling people about their book. They did a live event, a radio show, a podcast, a magazine article, 5 things over and over. And that's the kind of effort that as authors we have to do with our books. I mean, whatever it is, you've got to be taking action, because I've been in publishing for so long, and so much of the publishing process is just outside of our control. Anything that we can do as authors. I mean, I can't convince somebody to buy your book or to put it in a bookstore or to sell it or any of those things. But I can take my own actions and my own responsibility for that. And so that's, I think, one of the real keys that I learned out of that experience. And my book started to sell, and my blog that I started in 2004, now it has over 1,700 entries in it, Nathan. And
wow,
it's not that I'm this great blogger, but I do blog every week. And
nice.
So, and all that adds up. I have this little thing that searches for my name out there online. And about a year ago, I found this article that said there were over 600 million blogs out there, but they pinpointed the top 27 content producers. And they had people like Ryan Holiday and Seth Godin and Jeff Goins, people like that. But my name was one of the top 27 content producers.
Nice.
It's not that I'm, any great blogger or anything, but I am a consistent blogger. And
yeah, I was going to ask Terry. it must be, right, consistency, because I hear the same thing even in podcasting, that consistency is really the key to success. Is that what you've experienced too?
Yeah, I think that is, and it's just getting up every day and working it. Whatever it is you're going to do, you've got to just do it over and over. Whether you get no's or yeses or whatever you get, you still have to be pushing it out there.
So your newest book, Terry, is 10 Publishing Myths, Insights Every Author Needs to Succeed. And obviously, we're going to get into this a little bit more as we go through our discussion. And I don't want you to give away anything because I want people to go take a look at your book. But from your experience, can you discuss maybe what the biggest error that authors make regarding their expectations for their book?
Yeah, the thing that happens on the expectation side is that these authors just say, okay, my book is going to do this. And so like the first myth is that my book will make a lot of money. Everybody just assumes, whether they've self-published, whether they've gone with a traditional publisher, however they publish their book, they just believe. It's almost like the Kevin Costner movie, Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Right.
They believe that if they write a book and put it out there, it will sell. Well, that's a myth. That's not really true. Because, I've met people that have self-published their books and they've spent, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 on that book. And there's no way it's going to earn that back. It just has not done it. It hasn't succeeded for them. So that's a myth that people need to know about, because so much of the publishing process is outside of anything that we can control. And so that's why I wrote 10 Publishing Myths at the end of it.
So myth number 1 in the book, which you just talked about, was your book's going to make a lot of money. So obviously that's a myth. We don't want to get into anything else. But with this myth, how did you come up with it and the reality of book sales from your perspective?
Well, people are always telling me that myth, that my book is going to make a lot of money. And you write a book for different reasons, I guess is what I'd say, Nathan. It's not just the money part,
right?
But it's you write a book to show your authority in that topic, to open up speaking opportunities, to get on podcasts like this.
Right.
Those kind of things really do begin to happen for you. You get invited to events. All kinds of things happen once you have a book out there. So it's a very important thing for you to do. It's just may not be financially lucrative for you at the end of the day.
Gotcha. So it could definitely be a passion project. You could do something on your own, but you can't have that that myth of going in and saying, I'm going to make millions of dollars off this book, because probably not many people do that.
Well, in the book world, if you sell 5,000 copies of your book in the lifetime of the book, that's a good number.
Yeah.
And the average self-published book, they've proven over and over that you may sell 100, 200 copies of that book in the lifetime of the book. It's because of the huge volume of material that's coming out. There's over 11,000 new books that come out every day.
Wow.
That includes all the self-published stuff, but there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but that's a lot of books.
Yeah, it's a very competitive market. So to get people's attention, you have to take action and do your work in that process to really help people know about your book at the end of the day.
Yeah, I like that, Terry, that you said you have to do work, meaning that even if whether you're self-published or published with a big firm, it doesn't matter. You're still going to have to get out there and put some work into it.
Yeah, and none of us want to do that. We don't want to become this, slick salesperson or any of that kind of stuff. But what you can do is, and you don't want to just, post things that say, buy my book,
right?
Because that doesn't work. But what does work is really figuring out who your readers are, going to those people, but then also stressing the benefits of your book. What are people going to get out of reading your book? What are they going to gain? Why is that something that they need to do? And one of the things that I've learned in publishing, for example, we're always interested in your social media numbers and your reach. And part of the reason is not that social media sells books so much, but it's because we've learned that somebody has to learn about your book a number of times, maybe a dozen times. They have to hear about your book before they say, oh, 10 Publishing Myths. I should get that book. So then
Yeah.
they decide to buy it. So part of what you're doing by telling people and stressing the benefits of the book is just those different touches that you're doing with the reader out there to get them interested in what you have.
Yeah, that's excellent. It's a great way to explain it, and and you're giving great examples of how people could get out there and promote their own book if they decide to go that route. Now, within your book, Terry, you have items in there called MBAs, right? Mythbuster actions.
I do.
Can you give us a little bit of an explanation of what readers could expect about maybe what the MBA is in each chapter and how it helps debunk those myths?
Yeah. Thanks, Nathan. What I did in that MBA is I really wanted to give authors practical things that each of us can do as authors, whether you self-publish or whether you go with a traditional house, actions that you can take. That's what I call a Mythbuster action, because it, like I was saying earlier, so much of the publishing process is outside of our control. And I talk to authors all the time, and they'll say, well, my readers, Terry, are over on YouTube, or my readers are on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. Well, within the business, we call those platforms rented platforms, because I don't control Facebook. As a matter of fact, I could knowingly or unknowingly violate their terms and get kicked off of there tomorrow. So you don't want to build your stuff on sand, that
Yes,
could disappear. You want to build your presence on your own website, your own blog, your own newsletter, because those are all things that you can control and you can do something about. So just be thoughtful about how you put it together at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's an amazing point that you put there as far as the rented platforms, because if you think back just to what the beginning of last month with TikTok, right? Say your readers are on TikTok
Right.
and they were about to ban it. Now you're out of a whole platform to use. So you're absolutely right.
There's book TikTok, and there's all these kinds of things.
Exactly.
So you basically have to focus, and I've focused, myself on just three of those platforms. I'm not everywhere, but I've got a pretty big presence on several of those platforms.
Yeah, and it is tough. As you know, you've been in it for a while. Like for me, Facebook's a big platform for me, and YouTube's growing bigger. But I'm on other platforms too where the numbers are not as big. And, it takes a lot of work to maintain multiple platforms, as I'm sure you know.
It does. So use the tools all that you can. I use a social media tool called Hootsuite, for example, to time out my posts. But I'm posting 12, 15 times a day. So I have a system, and I've been doing this for years, and
nice.
Just figure out what system's going to work for you, but do it consistently, because that's what really draws people and will help you in the long run.
Yeah. And one of the themes that I'm hearing from you, Terry, is to do as much that's in your own control and make sure that you really grasp what's going on and really kind of take the bull by the horns and make sure that you're putting every effort that you have into those things that you can control. Because like you said, with the publishing side of it, you can't control it. Once that book's out there to them, what they do is kind of out of your hands, right?
It is. And I've had publishing experience where I got a 6-figure advance from a publisher, but that publisher didn't show me the cover, didn't show my co-author the cover. They actually had my co-author's picture on the cover of that book, and he hated that picture. He wouldn't dare do any promotion on that book.
Yeah.
So after 6 months, that publisher took our book out of print, destroyed the books. And so I have a few copies in my garage, but I think I'm one of the few people around that have any copies of that book. So there's a lot of strange things like that happen out there that's totally outside of anything you can control.
Obviously, in order to do all these things, and with your writing, you got to have some type of passion for writing, right? I have to assume that. And so do you know why do authors kind of have the greatest passion for their own books, and how can that help shape their publishing journey?
Yeah, passion is a big part of it. So, you may be published by a traditional house. Like at Morgan James, we publish 200 books a year. We love your book. We've invested a lot in it to get it out there in the bookstore, all that kind of thing. But our passion is really divided. because of all these books that we're working on. You're focused on your book. So you have to take that passion and use that every day to be telling people about it in some way. And it could be a simple way that you do that, but just do it over and over because you need those touches out there to find your readers.
Absolutely. It just keeps going through my mind. I just love the fact that you're just really not just relying on the publisher or a publishing house, that you're really taking control of the promotional aspect of your book on your own. And I think a lot of people don't think about that, because I know here sitting here thinking about a book, in traditional terms, I might go to the store, buy it, Books A Million, online, whatever it may be, but you don't think about, how did I find out about that book? And the work that you put into it is definitely going to help you get more copies of that book sold instead of relying on others.
The old circus promoter, Nathan, P.T. Barnum, he said, without promotion, something terrible happens. Nothing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. So obviously, we want to promote, we want to get things, but what about for maybe a new writer or a novice writer? What kind of attribute do you think is most important for a novice writer to succeed?
Well, I think for a new writer, one of the great attributes, I think, would be to tell stories, because those of us, when we read things, we may remember the facts, but it's the story that we're really going to remember at the end of the day. So I always encourage people to write magazine articles, because with a magazine article, it's very easy to reach 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 people with that magazine piece. Where, like I was saying earlier with the books, if you sell 5,000 copies of your book in a lifetime, that's a good number. So you can reach a lot more people with a magazine piece. And let's face it, Nathan, books are long. I mean, my wife's so tired of hearing me say that, but whenever I get writing a book, it's like, books are long, but that's how you feel when you're sitting there trying to write 50 to 100,000 words and get your deadline out there.
Yep.
Where with a magazine article, you can write 1,200 words or 1,500 words, and that's it. So you learn how to write a headline, you learn how to really start well, have a good middle, have a good ending, beginning, middle, and end, write to a single point, write to a reader. You learn all those skills with a smaller piece of writing as opposed to a long one. And you can reach more people. You can build your own audience doing that. What people don't think about is if you write on a related topic, and let's say you write 12 or 15 of those articles, they can be chapters of your book. It's all a matter of looking at it and saying, okay, how can I get the most mileage out of this stuff? And that's one of the ways, a simple way right there.
I love that. And putting it into magazines, like you said, it's not as much effort as writing a full book, because generally your article is going to be shorter, but it gives you an opportunity to build a foundation there, get your name out there so people know, he's a great writer. I read his article in this magazine or that magazine, and now Terry's got a book out. Oh, great. I'm going to check that out as well. So that's great advice, just to get somebody out there and start writing.
And magazines tell you what they want. They all have this thing called guidelines. And so you can Google it, or you can go to your library and look for them or whatever, but they have these writers' guidelines, and that they tell you what they want. They want this kind of story. And so read the guidelines, deliver to the editor what he's asking for. It puts you in a different place so that they're really much more likely to say yes to you, as opposed to just, writing something off the top of your head and sending it in randomly, trying to get it published.
So with a book or even a magazine, because I have to assume it's the same, as far as vetting potential publishers, is there simple ways that, as a new author or even an experienced author like yourself, that you can check out a publisher before you commit to them?
Yeah, you really should do this. Every publisher has people that complain about them. We have people at Morgan James that complain about us, and whether it's true or not true, that stuff that they put out there, it's out there forever when it's out there online. At Morgan James, we've been around over 20 years, 29 times on the New York Times list, over 200 times on the Wall Street Journal list. we have a really solid track record of what we've done. But if you're working with a publisher, I always encourage people to put the name of that publisher into Google along with the word scam or complaint and see what comes up. And so if you do that and you find pages and pages of people complaining about somebody,
Should be a red flag, right?
should be a red flag, big time. So don't go sign up with some of those people and spend thousands of dollars that you'll never get back.
Yep, exactly. Any other tips for maybe vetting out a publisher?
Well, another way is just to ask to talk to a few of their authors. Oh, ask them. I mean,
Nice.
maybe they have a list. If somebody asked me at Morgan James, sure, I have a list of authors that give me permission to hand out their email address, and they know they're going to get some emails like that, and so they're happy to tell about their experience and all that kind of thing. I've had other authors that have said, right now, Terry, it's between you and a couple other people. So what I did, this author, he ordered some books from each of those places. So you get the book and you say, okay, does this look like I want my book to look? Is it quality? You get a real book and you get that feeling of what the publisher's going to be like to work with.
I know we talked about this a little bit before, Terry, but platform, the importance of a platform. So how is a platform in the context of authorship, and why does every author need one? And I think we touched on this a little bit, but I think this is going to hit home for our listeners.
Yeah. Every author needs a platform. Platforms kind of like, when you speak, they have these raised situations where you're out there above everybody else. We talk about platform a lot in publishing because we want you to have connections, and all of us start out small. We have a small newsletter. We have a small number of connections when we start out, but you can slowly but surely grow that, and that can become something. So even at Morgan James, we ask for people to find out, what their Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, all those kinds of things, just to see that they do have something out there. It's not that they have to have huge numbers with us,
Right.
but they do have to have something started. So I always encourage people to, start something and be building it.
Yeah, and I have to assume from you coming from the side of being a publisher that there's certain things you're going to want to see from an author as well, right? Like you said, looking at their platform and how they're doing, because you want to make sure that the book's going to be successful just as much as the author does, right?
That's right. We're investing thousands of dollars into each of these books, and so we want to make sure that we can get those funds back and make wise decisions. I mean, it's hard for us as publishers.
Yeah.
I mean, we receive 5,000 submissions every year and only do 180 to 200 books.
Wow.
So there definitely is a selection process there
Exactly.
about which books we're going to publish and which books we're going to say no to.
Yeah, and then so it's just speaking on the publishing train, self-publishing versus traditional publishing. We touched on that a little bit. But is self-publishing, is that the likely path for new authors, or is it more of a traditional publishing?
Well, that's a great question, Nathan. There's actually three paths that I would tell people about. There's self-publishing, which, all of us can publish on Amazon, but like at Morgan James, they're only 24% of our overall business. So the way I look at it, you publish with Amazon, you're missing 76% of what we do for the book out there. Or it's on the traditional side where you get a literary agent and you lose a lot of your control about how your book's going to look and feel and all that kind of thing. In the middle is this group of publishers. They're called independent publishers, and Morgan James actually falls into that independent category. We've been on a list from Publishers Weekly 10 times that we're one of the top independent publishers in the country.
Wow.
And so you really want to look at these different options and figure out which is the right one for you at the end of the time. I have this book. When I was an acquisitions editor, this is the third publisher actually that I'm working for in the acquisitions area, finding the books that we publish. The very first publisher that I worked with, it was brutal actually to try to get contracts for authors. We had this dog and pony show that we put on once a month, and we could sit there with our big binders and pitch the authors to the leaders of the publishing house. The chief operating officer of the company had this thing that he did every now and then, and he would pipe up and he'd say, "Okay, Terry, we could sell 2 of those books, one to me and one to somebody else." Well, we weren't trying to sell 2 of anything, so that was the death knell for that particular book. It's like, okay, let's flip the tab and go on to the next book.
Exactly.
And so out of my own frustration back then, Nathan, I wrote this book called Book Proposals That Sell, 21 Secrets to Speed Your Success, because I was selfishly writing this book to try to get better submissions is what I was trying to do. And it's helped a lot of people through the years. It has over 150 5-star reviews out there. People have used it to get a publishing deal, find the literary agent, get an advance. All kinds of great things have happened from that book. But publishing has changed a lot since I wrote that first book. So a couple years ago, I wrote a revised edition of this book, and it's out there now, the revised edition. And I actually want people to get that revised edition for me for free. If they go to bookproposals.ws, bookproposals.website, that takes you to a place where you can see the cover and a little bit about the book and this big button that says free book. You get the whole book from me for free.
Wow.
Now, I give that away because one of the things that we've learned at Morgan James is that if you get that free ebook from me and start to read that, there is a high probability that you're going to turn and buy the print copy of the book. So giving away that free ebook, I lose nothing. I basically drive print book sales by doing that. And so I really want people to do that. And that book proposal is your business plan. Whether you self-publish, whether you write a children's book, fiction, whatever it is you do, you need a plan. And this book really helps you to try to develop your plan. Who's your reader? Who's your competition? What are you going to do? It gives you all those kinds of questions that you have to answer in order to be able to put together this book proposal.
Terry, what's the name of that book again for our listeners?
Book Proposals That Sell.
Okay. And the website again?
bookproposals.ws.
Perfect. So you get the free book, and that's a great idea, because if you're going to drive actual physical copy sales, then you might as well, right? And then on top of yourself, I know you said you originally was a little bit selfish trying to get better submissions for yourself as a publisher, but it's still great. It's a great way to look at things. You give somebody something that they can learn from, and then even if they don't buy your book, maybe they'll give you a great submission later on down the road.
That's right. And when ebooks came out, Nathan, years ago, we thought ebooks were going to conquer the world. They were going to take over print. Print was going to disappear, all this stuff. Well, worldwide, we've pretty much proven that isn't going to happen, because even today, it's 80% print and 20% ebook. So ebooks are not going to take over print. We don't have to worry about that.
And that's so funny, Terry, because I have, an e-reader or a Kindle ebook, and I have books that I download and I'll take that and read, but I don't know what it is. I still love a physical copy in my hands. You'd be able to turn that page, put a bookmark in. There's just something about it. The ebook just doesn't give you the same satisfaction.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Speaking of books, because I know you have a ton of experience, not only as an author, a writer, but a publisher, is there a formula for success, for a book to become a bestseller? What are some of the things that could contribute to that?
Well, I guess the best advice I can give you is that we're all on this journey to try to figure out what the route is, and it's different for every person. So it's not like there's a little 1, 2, 3 formula that we can do. But as authors, we have to kind of be experimenting all the time. And we go through a lot of failure, just like Edison did when he invented the light bulb, I mean, it's a process, and you have to find your audience. I mean, your audience may be over on Facebook, or maybe it's on Instagram, but that newsletter you have is very important. And so do that. Start that newsletter list. Use that newsletter on a consistent basis, and that will really help you. Use those kind of tools like that you can, and ultimately you'll find your way to success.
Thank you for that information, because you're right. I knew there wasn't going to be just a checklist of this is how you're going to be successful. I figured it was going to be a combination of the things, Terry, that we've already spoken about, promoting your brand, making your brand your own, getting your platform. All these things are going to help you to become, or be more likely to become a bestseller.
Well, absolutely. And I've learned these lessons the hard way myself here, Nathan. I mean, I've had a newsletter for years, for example, but my newsletter was all over the place. I was pointing people to this website and to this book and that thing, and I wasn't doing it very consistently. So here, I'd say a number of months ago, I decided that I was going to be consistent. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been sending out my newsletter every Wednesday. It goes out to thousands of people. And I don't point people here and there or wherever. I point people one place, 10 Publishing Myths, because that's what I want them to do. I want them to go to this and get this book and really succeed at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's excellent. And then I have to assume that, like most facets of life, networking can also help improve the, connections can help you in the publishing world, right?
It does. I often tell people that who you know is almost as important as what you know, because those individuals could really help you. And a lot of those people that I've met through the years have some problem that they need help with. And so if you as the writer go to a writer's conference, it's one of the best places to do that, because you get to drink coffee and eat a meal and sit around late at night and talk with people and all that kind of thing. Don't go and just hide out in your room. I mean, most of us that are writers are introverts, so I totally understand that. But, rise above it, seize the opportunity, and just sit and ask questions and learn from these people, because that's where I've made tons of friends and relationships through the years. And my literary attorney, for example, says that I've signed more work made for hire agreements than anybody she knows. But I've been a working writer for years.
Yeah.
And so I sign those agreements, deliver the book, go on to the next book. It's that simple. And so there's all kinds of opportunities out there. What people don't realize is that they have to take action to seize those ideas and make those things happen. I believe we live in one of the greatest times in human history. I mean, we have these little devices in our pocket that can reach around the world. I mean, it's phenomenal, but we have to do something. You can't just carry it around with you and hope that something happens.
Yeah. And so obviously networking can help you with, your writing, maybe hooking you up with a publisher or getting some ideas for publishing. But Terry, in your experience, what are ways that you like to connect with your audience to not only promote the book, but just, to connect and see feedback and things like that? Do you have any preferred methods for reaching out with or contacting your audience?
There's a lot of different ways, but, I really like LinkedIn, for example. I ignored LinkedIn for a long time, but that's kind of a business connection thing. And what I find is in the publishing community, we move around a lot. So editors will change houses. 1 year they're an editor, the next year they're a literary agent, then they go back to being an editor. I mean, there's all kinds of things that happen. But they take their LinkedIn account with them every time they move. So that's a great connection to have that kind of thing. And so, search for my name. Send me a connection on LinkedIn. I mean, I have 19,000 connections on LinkedIn, but I think the system goes up to 35,000.
Wow.
So I still have some room.
You still have room to grow.
I have room to grow. So do that. Find those people. That's your tribe out there, and get those connections.
Terry, is there anything else that you think is important for the listeners to know, whether it be about your book, publishing, or writing, anything you want them to be aware of?
Well, the main thing I want them to do is to go get this book, because and I've set up a special website. If they go to publishingoffer.com, they'll be able to get this book for $10, including the shipping, along with over $200 worth of extra bonuses that I throw in there. So there's a lot of value that I try to give them besides a valuable book. The other thing that I'd like to tell them about, Nathan, is that when I gathered the endorsements for this book, Alice Kreider, who's an acquisitions editor, when she sent her endorsement to me, she said, "Terry, you're missing the 11th myth." I'm like, "Oh, okay, Alice, what's the 11th myth?" She said, "Well, the 11th myth should be that if I send my book to Oprah Winfrey, she'll book me on her show." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's a pretty big myth." And so what I decided to do when I was writing this book, I decided to write that chapter. And we designed it to look exactly like the rest of the book. And people can get that from me for free if they go to terrylinks.com/myth, 11th myth. And that takes you to my website. You can put your name and your email address in there and get this chapter for free.
Awesome. It's like you're reading my mind, because that was my next question. I was going to ask you about the 11th myth, but you covered it already. And the special offer, that's great. I mean, listeners out there, if you're into writing and you want to find out about the publishing myths and get some, really get your career or your writing career and art form off the ground, where else can you get a book for $10 shipped and $200 worth of extra offers? So yeah, make sure you go to publishingoffer.com. That's where you can purchase Terry's book and get the extras as well. But Terry, that's amazing. Just so much stuff that we learned here, just and really some simple things, just about consistency and using your platforms, using your mailing list, put out a newsletter. This is all great advice for anyone who's really getting into writing or has been writing and wants to publish. So definitely thank you for all this. And I know that there's even more in your book, 10 publishing myths, that they can go to publishingoffer.com and get their $10 copy.
Yeah, Nathan, I really appreciate this opportunity. And I guess what I tell people here at the end is we as writers here know a lot. And maybe we get ghosted. We send our stuff out there and nobody responds. And we think, well, they must not have wanted what I sent them. I've been in some of the top publishing houses and literary agencies in New York City. And whenever I meet with those people, it's always interesting to me because their question to me is always, "Terry, where's the next bestseller? Where's the next best-selling novel, the best-selling children's book, the best-selling nonfiction book?" And what that shows me is that they may not be responding to you, or they may be saying thanks, but no thanks, but they're reading their email. They're reading their physical mail. And all of us are. We're actively looking for that diamond in the rough, for that particular author and that project that we can take and publish their stuff and get it out there into the world and sell it.
Yeah. And so that almost makes it sound like you never know until you try. And even if you get it ghosted, it could take 1,000 times, but eventually someone will find value in your book, or maybe someone will give you some feedback and tell you how you can maybe improve it and, give some suggestions. But you're absolutely right. You never know until you try.
Well, and that's right. That goes back to the whole writers conference thing that I was telling you about. One of the advantages to these writers conferences is you can actually sit with people for a few minutes and get feedback from them, which, it's pretty hard to give people feedback on their manuscript, because that's not really my task. My task is to say yay or nay at the end of the day, where if you're sitting with them at some conference somewhere, you can actually go through a couple pages with them and help them understand the type of actions that they need to take. So go to those events. Those are great places.
Thanks for that advice, Terry, because I think, we don't think about conferences that often outside of work, right? But yeah, there's writers' conferences. I've been to podcast conferences. I mean, they have them for almost everything. But You're right. If you can go sit down with other people that are in your craft, get constructive feedback from them, it's only going to help you, assuming the feedback is good feedback. We have to make an assumption there, but, you have to use your common sense and kind of your own brain to realize what this person's saying. Does that make sense? Or is it, maybe I shouldn't take that advice?
Yeah, no, it's subjective, and one person will say no, and the next person will say yes. You just have to look for the right fit for you, and it's definitely out there, but it doesn't just come by
Yeah.
sitting around. You have to
Yeah.
do
You just
something.
don't write a book and throw it in a bin and there you go. Now you got a book.
No.
Excellent. Well, Terry, is there anything else that you want to address with the audience while we've got you here?
I just really encourage people to keep keep doing keep learning about this business. I'm learning new things. It's been only recently that I've gotten into podcasting here, Nathan. So, there's always different things that you can try. And just like we were saying earlier, it won't fly if you don't try. You've
Yeah,
to give it the effort, and that effort
absolutely.
will pay off in the long run.
And that's a perfect note to end on. And Terry, your book again is 10 Publishing Myths, Insights Every Author Needs to Succeed. It's available now. We have a special offer that we already talked about. For our listeners, justadudepodcast.com will also have all of Terry's information. He has a guest section there in our show guests featured page. So you can see all of Terry's information there, social media links, everything. And then also the websites that we posted on the screen will get you to Terry's book offers. And if you need to contact Terry somehow, you can get him through his website. So Terry, thank you so much. I really appreciated that. Well, there you have it, folks. A deep dive into the world of publishing with none other than Terry Whalin. We've debunked myths, talked about the passion behind writing, the importance of networking, and so much more. I hope you've taken away some valuable insights that will help you on your writing journey. Remember, Terry's book, 10 Publishing Myths, Insights Every Author Needs to Succeed, is now available with a special offer. You can snag a physical copy for just $10, including shipping, and you'll get over $200 worth of free bonuses. Don't miss out on this opportunity to equip yourself with the knowledge you need to succeed. Head over to publishingoffer.com to claim yours now. A huge thank you to Terry for joining us today and sharing his wealth of experience. If you want to learn more about Terry, check out his website, where you'll find more resources, his latest works, and ways to connect with him. We'd love to hear from you. What was the most surprising myth you learned about today? Let us know by leaving a comment on our social media or through our website, justadudepodcast.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with fellow writers or anyone interested in the craft of storytelling. Please keep those pens moving, keep those stories flowing, and remember, the world needs your words. Don't forget to subscribe for more episodes where we'll continue to explore the art and business of writing, as well as other endeavors. Until next time, this is Nathan from Just a Dude Podcast, reminding you to keep writing, keep learning, and keep dreaming. See you on the next episode.